There are some moments in history that are just utterly remarkable. Moments that we just want to freeze in time, distill into a drink, patent the formula for that drink, and serve it to the masses because we know if we were to capture the way that we all felt in bottle form, we would all become billionaires. And Gaige Grosskreutz testimony at the Kyle Rittenhouse trial is one of those moments. Now, everybody, and I mean absolutely everybody, is highlighting the key moment where Grosskreutz gives up the game in terms of self-defense. But all of this testimony, especially during cross-examination, was a work of art from the defense. And to be fair, I was talking to other people when I was at Better Discourse event, and we had discussed that we weren't that impressed with the defense. The evidence for Kyle Rittenhouse on his side is overwhelming, and that's the only reason in our minds at the Better Discourse behind the scenes, Rittenhouse was winning, because the case was so weak, so flawed, that the left had to consistently make stuff up, talk about things like crossing state lines, or outright reimagine the facts that were captured on video in order to even approach a case that was even chargeable, much less something that was convictable. However, this is where the defense really shined. This is where the defense really stepped it up. In this cross-examination, the defense shredded the key witness for the prosecution, and it was glorious. It was magical. It was wonderful. It was noble gold transition. Is your entire life savings in the stock market despite all the warning signs of upcoming danger, inflation, a supply chain crisis, all these other problems that seem to be just a couple months away? Well, you guys can do a lot worse than just calling Noble Gold Investments and talking to them about the tax advantages and the security of putting some of your stuff in precious metals. If you contact Noble Gold, you can learn about some of the tax advantages of a precious metals IRA, and of course, there's a gift for this month. It's an America the Beautiful 5-ounce silver coin. It looks like a giant quarter. I actually really like this thing, so, consider opening a thing. The website is noblegoldinvestments.com. My custom URL is in the pinned comment and at the top of the description, or you can call them at 877-646-5347. That's 877-646-5347. So during the prosecution's questioning of Gaige, who by the way literally has gauges in his ear, the prosecution tried to paint Gaige as this great guy, as this medic, as this compassionate person who's really concerned about people, and they honestly bored the crap out of me with unrelated backstory on this guy going to protest and being concerned with people and streaming on Facebook Live and all that other nonsense that's completely irrelevant to the case.
Did you have any experiences growing up that made you want to get into the medical field?
Many, I think. I remember being a young child. My grandma was employed as a registered nurse at Columbia St. Mary's in Milwaukee. Like I said, being a small child, I remember her teaching me how to use a stethoscope and a blood pressure cuff. I'd say that was probably my earliest memory when I decided that I wanted to pursue a career in medicine.
Now, all of this was an attempt by the prosecution to grant credibility to this person, to make him sympathetic before the jury. This is why they put him in a suit, try to clean him up as best as possible in order to make him as presentable as possible. And Gaige appeared to be addressing the jury, which is kind of hit or miss in terms of a strategy. If you're charismatic, if you know what you're doing, you can play to the jury in this way. Police officers often do this because they're explaining to the jury. It's like you're incorporating them in the conversation. But I think that Gaige was really off base in this. And what the prosecution ultimately ended up doing by trying to set up Gaige as this good guy, Gaige Grosskreutz with a gun and gauges, is they ended up setting him up for an incredible fall, because the defense's questioning, the cross-examination of Gaige, was unbelievable. It was stellar in every way, not just in that final question, which by the way wasn't technically the final question. It was the final question for the prosecution's case against Kyle Rittenhouse, since every other aspect of the case completely fell apart. For a great fall, and he did fall mightily. It turns out that Gaige, Mr. Guy with the gun missing a bicep, thought it would be a good idea during the course of this case to tweet out about the case as the trial was going on.
This is right. This is your tweet from November 5th. So during this trial, you're tweeting out, yes?
Yes.
And you tweet out to whoever these people are, make sure you look and listen for the defendant's firearm malfunction, and then you have a winky emoji face. Is that right?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. So this is, the 5th was yesterday?
That would have been Friday.
Now, we talked about this in multiple different cases that we covered on this channel, that if you're involved in a trial, and by the way, I've advised people that may potentially be called as witnesses in this trial to shut their mouths when we're talking about this instance. Don't tie yourself to this, especially if you know for a fact you're the star witness for either the prosecution or defense. Remember the Akilah Hughes case, Akilah Hughes for Sargon, where she's suing Sargon, and Sargon is planning on getting damages later on, but Akilah's not thinking about that in her head, and she's talking nonstop about how she wants to take his money, how she wants to put him in his poorhouse, how she wants to take food off his children's table so that they can't eat because they deserve poverty, because Sargon didn't violate fair use law in using the clips of her video the way that he did. This can be held against you in a court of law. This is why any lawyer worth their salt, or any lawyer not even worth their salt, even if they're a terrible lawyer, would tell you to shut your mouth before you testify in trial. But Gaige is actually tweeting at people before the trial, while it's going on, and during, all around the dates of the trial. I know I'm stumbling and bumbling my words, but it's okay, that he's gonna nail Rittenhouse, and he's all excited. He's fighting back against people that are mocking him. And it's just one of those amazing moments where a Twitter leftist realizes Twitter isn't real life, which is immortalized in this meme, which has Gaige Grosskreitz's own words against his face after he sunk the prosecution's case. But wait, there is more, because one of the things that you definitely shouldn't do is talk about the case outside of the case. It's a terrible idea. It's absolutely horrible. It is shameful. It is idiotic to do so. But another thing that you probably shouldn't do if you're going to be a key witness in a prosecution's case is appear to be money hungry and greedy and entitled, which Gaige Grosskreutz absolutely did during the course of this trial. Because it turns out that Gaige, again, Gaige with the gauges and the gun and the missing part of his bicep, decided to file a lawsuit against the city of Kenosha for $10 million because somehow the city of Kenosha is responsible for him trying to run up on somebody that he had no business running up on.
Exhibit number 62. This is a notice of claim. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. Filed on your behalf by your lawyer, right?
That is correct, yes.
Making a notice or telling, among others, the city and county of Kenosha that you would like $10 million. True?
That is correct.
Did you read this?
I did.
So are you aware in this document, you never mentioned that you actually possessed a firearm? You know that?
That is correct.
You left that part out, right?
That is correct.
Judge, I would move 62.
Is there objection?
No.
Proceed.
You then had, shortly thereafter, I want to say in October, I'm going to show you what is Exhibit 63. You have now filed a lawsuit in federal court. Is that right?
That is correct.
Did you read that?
Yes, I did.
Okay. In that document, you again failed to mention that you possessed a firearm. Is that right?
That is correct.
So you, in these documents that you are filing with courts, you are leaving out the fact that you had possessed a firearm when you were shot, right?
That is correct.
Okay. And this is, so to be fair, this is your testimony today, and how this case turns out has an impact on your ability to try to collect your $10 million, right?
That's correct.
So if he's convicted, if Mr. Rittenhouse is convicted, your chance of getting $10 million is better, right?
I'm not entirely sure how that plays out.
Look at this face. Again, if you're the prosecution, you have to be burning up inside. He just cracked a smile when he answered that question. Incredibly dishonest looking. Gaige, what are you doing? Get a hold of your life. Now, there's a lot of jokes that Gaige's testimony ended up costing him $10 million, but in reality, how Kyle Rittenhouse shooting his arm, even if Kyle Rittenhouse was a criminal in this instance, is somehow the responsibility of the city of Kenosha is beyond me. It's insane. So right now we have Gaige as somebody who's not very clear-minded. He's tweeting nonsense at random people on Twitter. We have him as money hungry because he's filing a lawsuit, and clearly his testimony in this trial appears to be in a way to aid that lawsuit. But at least we don't have any clear outward representations of dishonesty. Oh wait, of course we do. Gaige lied throughout the course of his interviews to the police and everybody involved about whether or not he had a gun in his hand, even though the gun in his hand was on video that was available that night.
Do you remember telling the officer who interviewed you, sometime during the incident, my Gen 4 Glock 27 that has a belt clip attached fell off my waist? Remember that?
I don't recall saying that, no.
Mr. Grosskreutz, I'm going to show you what has been marked as exhibit number 69 for identification. Do you recognize that document?
I do.
Okay. And that's, if I could be fair, I'm not going to stand by you the whole time, so I'm sorry, but is that your signature?
That is.
Okay. And it appears that that is, it says on 8/25/20 at 11:30 p.m. at 6300 Sheridan Road, and then it goes on a narrative version of your statement. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And if I could, toward the end of that large paragraph, you'd agree it says, sometime during the incident, my Gen 4 Glock 27 that had a belt clip attached fell off my waist. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. That's a lie, right?
I wouldn't say that's a lie, no.
You didn't take the Glock out of your back here and run with it?
I did.
So it didn't fall off your waist. It was in your hand.
That's correct.
So you would say that's not a lie?
No, I would say it isn't.
Okay, and you told that to multiple officers. Isn't that true?
I don't know.
Same exhibit, sir. The next sentence. I told multiple officers that I dropped my firearm. Right?
Correct.
Okay. Now,
Now, it's important to note that the gun that Grosskreutz possessed and pointed at Kyle, which we will get to later, was a pistol that Grosskreutz was concealing during the course of the Kenosha riot, a pistol that he did not have a valid permit to conceal, thus making Grosskreutz possession of that pistol illegal under Wisconsin state law.
you're doing that for personal protection, correct?
Correct.
And you're carrying it concealed, are you not?
That is correct.
It's unlawful for you to carry it concealed. Is that not true?
Unlawful?
Yeah, you can't carry a concealed weapon without a CCW permit, right?
That is correct, yes.
You have to open carry. You have to have, been talking about people with their guns out, you have to carry it with it out if you don't have a CCW permit, right?
That is correct.
And you didn't have a CCW permit, did you?
I did have a CCW permit.
It wasn't valid, correct?
After the fact, yes, I found out that it was not valid.
So, have you been charged for unlawfully carrying a firearm?
No, I have not.
So you're carrying a gun for protection in your, if I have it right, back here, right?
That is correct.
Now, we've heard so much about Kyle Rittenhouse possessing an illegal gun on a technicality. He was a few months from the age in which he would have been able to open carry that gun in the state of Wisconsin, but pistols are more tightly regulated in most parts of the country because they're concealable, and thus that makes them more dangerous, even if on a technical level that might not be true, because again, most people in the United States who are killed by gunfire, the overwhelming majority, are killed by pistols. So what I mean by this in this very roundabout way is that Gaige's possession and the manner in which he possessed this firearm in the state of Wisconsin that night during the riot is actually a bigger deal than Kyle Rittenhouse open carrying a rifle months before he turned 18 and he would have been legally permitted to do so. And again, this is not even taking into account the Second Amendment lawyer argument about whether or not the very broadly or weirdly written, not very clearly written, law that allows a long gun exception for certain things under supervision can actually be applied to Rittenhouse in this case. So, Grosskreutz should have been charged with this, and of course he wasn't charged with this, which just goes to show you where the prosecution's head has been at this whole time.
Did you ever get charged for not telling the truth to the police about dropping your gun?
No.
Did you ever tell the police in here on this statement that you actually had a firearm in your hand and pointed it at the defendant?
No, I did not.
You never told them you had a gun at all in terms of as you had an interaction with Mr. Rittenhouse. True?
That is correct.
And I know you said you don't know, but Jason Lakowski testified that he picked up that firearm that he believes belonged to you, and there was one in the chamber. Do you dispute that that could be true?
No, I do not.
So Rittenhouse, despite overwhelming evidence that his actions were perfectly in line with Wisconsin state self-defense law, gets charged by the prosecution. They bring up this whole thing. They start leaking stuff to the media and putting ideas out there in order to smear his name. But Grosskreutz, who is a leftist, who is in violation of a law that's much more serious in terms of its intent to impact the homicide rate in a much bigger way, is allowed to do whatever he wants without consequences. So now we have dishonesty about his possession of the gun. We have the fact that he was committing a crime in the manner that he possessed the gun. And we have special treatment from the prosecution, along with money hungriness, and along with a bad attitude and not being able to gauge the situation, pun intended.
You had mentioned to the police that evening that you tried telling Mr. Huber, you just said the guy, but you tried telling the guy to stop hitting him with the skateboard. Is that right?
That is what I put in my statement, yes.
Is that true?
With the benefit of hindsight, I don't believe that to be true, no.
Okay, so when you told that to the police that you told the guy with the skateboard to stop hitting him, that's not correct. That's not true.
That is correct.
Upon further reflection, what I told the police was completely false. This is such a pointless lie. If you're the prosecution, you have to be pulling your hair out of your head at how bad Grosskreutz is on the stand. But it just gets worse.
You didn't drop your firearm. You were chasing Mr. Rittenhouse with your gun, right?
You
were chasing him with your gun? Yes?
No.
You didn't chase him down Sheridan Road, pulling your gun, chasing after him. That's a lie. You're saying that didn't happen.
I'm not saying that it didn't happen, but I wasn't chasing the defendant.
You were running after him?
No.
No. So he's 30 feet, at least 30 feet ahead of you. You look like at that point you're moving. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. So with him 30 feet ahead of you, running away from you, at that point you pull your firearm and begin to chase him, correct?
No.
You don't begin to chase him?
Nope. No, I do not.
You head in the direction that he's running. Yes?
Correct.
But you just happen to be running in that direction? It has nothing to do with Kyle Rittenhouse running in that direction?
No, it does have to do with the defendant running in that direction, yes.
You know shots are fired, right?
Correct.
Okay. And the only information that you have is Mr. Rittenhouse saying, according to you, he pulled the gun on me first, right?
Correct.
And based on that, you believe there's an active shooter.
Not solely on that, but yes.
You don't have any information, correct?
I had minimal information.
And in fact, what he says to you was, I'm going to the police, correct?
That is correct.
And he's running toward the police, isn't he?
That is correct.
Okay. So and tell me if this is right. You have no idea what happened with Mr. Rosenbaum, do you?
Apart from, no. No.
On that day?
Correct.
Okay. And he tells you he's running, and he tells you whatever he tells you, I'm going to the police, or what you think is, he pulled the gun first, and he's running away from you, right? He's running north on Sheridan Road. Yes?
Correct.
And he's running away from where you're standing. True?
Correct.
You at that point pull a firearm out from your belt and began to chase him. True?
That is not true.
So one of the things that I find absolutely amazing about Grosskreutz' awful testimony is that for some reason, he is opposed to acknowledging the fact that he did chase Kyle Rittenhouse. It is clear, it's obvious, he wasn't coincidentally running at Rittenhouse with his gun drawn. He was obviously pursuing him. So already, and I mean already, there are major problems with Grosskreutz' testimony thus far under cross-examination. But it's about to get a lot worse, because the prosecution's star witness is in reality a meteor headed straight for the alleged mountain of evidence, and it's about to turn it into a crater, because Gaige is about to confirm the self-defense narrative beyond any doubt at all, and it is going to be glorious, because the defense is going to ask him a series of questions, and he's going to answer them truthfully this time, not like he did under examination from the prosecution, and it's just going to confirm exactly what we've all known from the video day one.
With your arms up in the air, he never fired, right?
Correct.
It wasn't until you pointed your gun at him, advanced on him, with your gun, now your hands down, pointed at him, that he fired, right?
Correct.
You had...
So there are so many things about that clip, that 60-aught seconds of video, that are just glorious, amazing, stellar in every way, that it would be a crime of me not to break it down for all of you, because it's just something I've never seen in a public trial before. I've never seen a star witness crash and burn so miserably. He literally melted every aspect of the prosecution's case. And listen, I've been in courtrooms during my time learning criminal justice. This is something that we did. And I remember a guy, and I told this story on the Roberta Glass podcast, who was pulled over for a DWI, who said that he wasn't drinking and driving because he only had 9 Coors. This guy was a worse witness than that guy in his own case. Because first and foremost, we know the obvious. He just confirmed the self-defense narrative. He said that Rittenhouse did not shoot him when he surrendered. He shot him when he pointed the gun at him. Game over. Gaige Grosskreutz charges completely dismissed, irrelevant. We already know the Huber situation, that he attacked him and went for the gun. And now, thanks to the FBI's drone footage that allegedly, theoretically, hypothetically was going to show Rittenhouse chasing Rosenbaum, we know that Rosenbaum set up an ambush for Kyle, and he was the aggressor in that situation, and we always knew that he lunged for the gun multiple times. So this is it. This is all they had, and not only did he destroy the charges against him, but he showed himself to be unbelievably uncredible, and showed the prosecution's case to be unbelievably uncredible. This is basically a slam dunk for the defense just on his answer, but his face after the answer was also glorious. The dude looks like he's about to cry, and maybe it's because he thinks he just lost a $10 million paycheck. I got news for you. You weren't going to get that $10 million paycheck, but your face is absolutely priceless, so you could take that home with you. Now, the next thing is the Rittenhouse reaction, and Kyle's reaction really does just go to the credit of everybody who was on this case, who looked the mainstream media in the eye when they were lying to us directly, who looked people like the Young Turks and the online left-wing media in the eye when they were lying to us directly, and told them the truth as seen on the video, and we were not going to not believe our lying eyes. We were going to believe what was in the evidence and not what they said, because Kyle just exhales like the weight has been lifted off of him, because he knows, just like everybody in that courtroom knows, the significance of Gaige giving up the game right there by admitting that Kyle only shot him when he posed the threat. So glorious all around, and I feel great for Rittenhouse and the family. Obviously, we have to wait until the end of the trial to see what's going to ultimately end up happening. But right here, absolutely amazing. Also, Kyle doesn't have to testify. If Grosskreutz was a really good witness, Kyle would have to testify, then he would be subject to prosecutorial cross-examination. He really doesn't have to do that. Honestly, the lawyers would be incompetent if they put him up on the stand now, but I would like to see him on the stand just from a point that if he nailed it, it would just further cement his innocence. Then there's the facepalm, which is absolutely hilarious and honestly a little bit embarrassing that the assistant district attorney does not have the emotional discipline and control to not expose what we all know visually by this gesture. I mean, if I was the district attorney, I would actually consider firing him over this, because this is iconic at this moment. This deserves to be put on a t-shirt. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's already on a t-shirt somewhere. And honestly, it's just amazing that this guy has no discipline, no control. Like, I knew the prosecution were questionable. The fact that they even brought charges against Kyle Rittenhouse was incredibly questionable, but I didn't think that they weren't slick. In fact, I gave the district attorney, the guy who's actually been trying the case, the lead counsel, some credit for at least trying to present a case in a way that was charismatic, and I contrasted that to the defense's performance, even though the defense had everything on their side, and I thought that he was actually putting up a fight. But this guy just sold to the jury how disastrous this moment was. Jesus, this is killer for the prosecution, and his facepalm tells it all. And it's not just me saying this, you could tell by the reactions how disastrous this was. First of all, the media is in full denial mode. They cannot accept that they've been lying to the public multiple different times, and they just got exposed live on television. So what they do is double down on the lies and say that Gaige Grosskreutz testified that he was shot as he was surrendering, when we all know, we all saw the video, just like we all saw the video in the Rittenhouse case, that our lying eyes told us that Gaige Grosskreutz testified to the opposite. So they're pretending like it's a slam dunk in the media, but that's going to crumble because obviously this ain't a slam dunk for the prosecution. It's a disaster. It's annihilation. It is a mercy rule. I think the judge needs to throw the towel and call it and tell the prosecution to pack up and go home because they just lost the case. But it's not just the mainstream media, it's the alternative media. The online lefty media is upset and they're trying to rationalize this. I mean, I saw the Young Turks have a segment, which we'll probably do a video on, where Cenk was pivoting from the facts of the case to saying that Kyle might not be legally guilty, but he might be morally guilty. I saw other people do the same, and there's a great clip, I think it's from the Viva La Fray channel, where him and a bunch of lawyers react to this, and it's absolutely glorious.
It wasn't until you pointed your gun at him, advanced on him, with your gun, now your hands down, pointed at him, that he fired, right?
Correct.
Oh, shit! That's it!
That's it.
Directed
That's
verdict. Directed verdict on all the murder charges. Kyle knows.
Yeah.
Directed verdict on the murder charges.
He just exhaled. Kyle just, oh, he looks like he's gonna cry.
How do you not acquit after that? Look at Bigger. Look at Bigger. Look at Big Boy.
Oh,
Big
man.
Boy. Oh.
Also, Philip DeFranco had no opinion on this. This is Philip DeFranco's thing. Anytime a story goes against his preconceived notions, this was a guy who was treating Kyle like he was a mass shooter. All of a sudden, Philip DeFranco doesn't have an opinion. He doesn't have anything worth saying. Although I will point out that Philip DeFranco on his show literally said the cross state lines things.
His attorney is arguing that he acted in self-defense, while prosecutors have sought to depict him as an aggressive vigilante who traveled across state lines to a town that he was not from and escalated an already tense situation.
This just goes to show you where this guy's at in his life right now.
I mean, you have no idea what Mr. Rosenbaum was ever thinking at any point in his life. You have never been inside his head. You never met him before. You don't know.
I've never exchanged words with him, if that's what your question is.
So your interpretation of what he was trying to do or what he was intending to do or anything along those lines is complete guesswork, isn't it?
Well, he said, "F you," and then he reached for the weapon.
I stepped in and told everybody, chill out, calm down, stop doing that. I turned and had an exchange with one of the protesters, and I kind of explained to that protester, hey, you know, I get what you're trying to do, but like not this. And when I turned around, Rosenbaum was right there in front of my face, yelling and screaming, and I said, dude, back up, just chill. I don't know what your problem is. And he goes, you know what? If I catch any of you guys alone tonight, I'm gonna kill you.
And he said that to you.
Correct.
Did he say that to the defendant as well?
The defendant was there, so yes.
So yeah, Gaige Grosskreutz, absolute total failure on the stand. Honestly, he was so good for the defense that Kyle Rittenhouse should hire him as a part of his defense team because he just slam dunk the not guilty verdict for Kyle Rittenhouse. If the jury votes the other way in this, and I mean the 19, I know they're going to break them down into 12 and they will ultimately make the decision, but if the jury votes the other way in this, it's absolutely crazy. This should be a unanimous not guilty by all 19 jurors, just based on this, not to mention all the other evidence, not only of Kyle Rittenhouse's innocence, but of shenanigans by the prosecution, by the FBI, and by the local police that went on during this case. They didn't even have the basis to charge Kyle with anything in this case, in my mind, except for the gun possession, which he might ultimately get off on if what that Second Amendment lawyer argues is to be true. So yeah, game over, Gaige Grosskreutz crying all day, but those are just my thoughts, so let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments below. If you like the video, you can show me by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on all my social medias, especially my Instagram. I'm really trying to build that up. Support me via the support links in the description box. This has been me talking about all of the things. Till next time.